皆さんこんにちは。ドクターフューチャーポッドキャストにようこそ。パーソナリティのジャック・飯村です。初めての方に自己紹介すると、僕は沖縄の米軍病院ハワイ大学で研修をしてアメリカの内科専門医を取得、医療の質改善、外資系製薬会社での臨床研究を経て、現在はエルゼビアジャパンで国内最大の日文献データベースである今日の臨床サポートの編集長をしています。仕事柄いろんな分野のトップランナーとお話しさせていただくことがあり、毎回たくさんの学びがあるんですが、これを自分の中に留めておくのがもったいない、皆さんとシェアしたいと思ってこのポッドキャストを始めました。この番組では国内外で働いているドクター、リサーチャー、起業家、教育者などなど未来を作っている方々にインタビューし、どんな武器や戦略を使っているのか、何から誰から学んでいるのか、どうやってコンディションを整えているのかといった桁外れの結果を叩き出す秘密に迫っていきます。 So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to your future. 第8回はゴータム・デシュパンデ先生です。スタンフォード大学、そして大学院で文化人類学を専攻。その後ペンシルバニア州立大学医学部 UCSD メディカルセンターでのジェネラルインターナルメディスンのレジデンシーを経て、2007年にはハワイ大学クワキリメディカルセンターでチーフレジデントの傍ら医学教育フェローシップをご経験されました。2008年からはハワイ大学内科助教授を務められています。2009年に来日、在日アメリカ大使館での臨床と並行して聖路加国際病院臨床教育担当兼聖路加ライフサイエンス研究所臨床疫学上級研究員、そして2018年には順天堂大学大学院医学研究科総合診療科学特任教授に就任され、日本の医学教育の国際化に尽力されています。今回もルーチンや情報源はもちろん、日本に来る決心をされるまで日本とハワイを行き来するデュアルライフに始まり、文化人類学の重要性、アメリカのメディカルスクールの良いところ、日本の強み、そして世界でリーダーシップを取るにはますます進む国際化に向けて医学生研修員が今からできること、そしてさらに英文紹介上虎の巻と外国人として日本に実際に住んでいるからこそのユニークな視点が盛りだくさんです。今回のインタビューは英語でありましたが、分かりやすい言葉を選んで話してくださったので、ぜひぜひトライしてください。 I had a blast with this. I hope you do as well. Please meet Dr. Gautam Deshpande. Gautam, welcome to the show.
Hey man, thanks for having me.
Dr. Deshpande has been much coveted by the students I've been teaching in Osaka, and today I'm at his office at Juntendo. Yeah, so it's been a while since we met last.
It sure has. Welcome to Tokyo.
Yeah, thanks.
Welcome to the big city.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I'm from a small city. Yeah, so what is that thing? You know, the other day I was looking at your Facebook post and I saw a picture of the pump.
Yes,
And
that's right.
What's it all about?
Right. So every year, I'm the doctor for the U.S. Embassy, and every year the U.S. Embassy has a big 4th of July party. And at every 4th of July party, there's a special celebrity guest. And this year it was the pump. So we're all kind of milling around, we're standing around, the ambassador comes out with his family, he gives a nice speech, you know, the usual niceties, and then he says, we have a special guest tonight, and the pump comes out, and they just come out, they get on stage, they say hi, hello, and they go right into the Come On Baby America song with the music and the dancing, and there was a smoke machine and everything. And then afterwards, they're like, thanks so much, it was fun to be here. No pictures, bye-bye. And then they just disappeared. Everybody was like, that was awesome. But was it kind of like a dream? Did we actually see the pump? Yeah, no, maybe we did. So that was pretty funny. Yeah.
So they just took off.
They were there, they did their famous song, danced, and then just disappeared.
Was that a surprise to you?
Yeah,
Were you announced beforehand?
No, I guess some people knew. Some people must have known, but I think for most people, we were like, what? Huh? Wow, cool. So that was pretty interesting. Yeah. And there's always something fun going on at the embassy. It's one of the nice things about working with the diplomatic community is there's always these sort of like, unexpected people coming through Tokyo. Tokyo's such a big city. It's a world city. So there's always interesting people coming through. It's actually a really fun place to work.
Oh, that sounds great.
Yeah, it's pretty fun.
So who's the person that comes to your mind who was the most interesting to meet?
Definitely President Obama.
President Obama.
Yeah, absolutely. So he visited Japan a couple of times, during the time that I was at the embassy. But the last time he came, he did the Hiroshima visit, where he met some veterans at Hiroshima. He visited the Peace Park. And, generally, you don't get a lot of FaceTime with the really big guys. So what happens was he was visiting Hiroshima through Iwakuni Air Base.
Right.
And I was the doctor assigned to that part of his trip. But he travels with his own doctors. He's very healthy. I'm never going to see this guy. Or so I thought. So I'm just kind of outside the staging area, just kind of hanging out. And then his doctor, who's named Dr. Jackson, Ronnie Jackson comes out and he's like, hey, are you Dr. Deshpande? And he's got this real charming Southern accent. I'm like, yeah, I am. Hey, I'm Dr. Jackson. I'm the White House doctor. Hey, you want to go out back and meet him? And I was like, really? Like, what? Really? He's like, come on back. And there was some, red tape and some yellow tape. And I'm like, am I supposed to be crossing this line? Dr. Jackson's like, no problem. Just come on back. And you go back to this area, and it's a really small area. Maybe, just a small room, a few meters by a few meters. And President Obama's just hanging out there. He's hanging out. He's flipping through a magazine, looking at some books, signing some books. And he looks over at us. And he's just the coolest guy ever. Just imagine the coolest guy that you've ever encountered, and that's him. He just kind of saunters over, real cool like, puts out his hand, and he's like, hey, Dr. Deshpande, how are you doing? Thanks for all your service. And I have never been starstruck before, but I was starstruck. I didn't even know what to say. Like, I was like, but that is by far like one of the biggest honors that I've had. I have a lot of respect for him, what he's done as a president, especially in healthcare with Obamacare. That was my biggest movie star moment.
Wow.
Yeah, it was pretty great.
So he was not on his high horse. He was very down to earth.
No, I guess Dr. Jackson had already told him about the health unit at the embassy because he already knew my name, and he came over and he just sort of stuck out his hand and like was like, just the nicest, coolest guy, It's like, hey, how are you doing? And then he stood around and chatted with us for a while. We told him how we had gotten his secretary to eat sushi. She had never eaten sushi before. And he was like, how did you guys do that? How did you convince her to eat raw fish? So he's a really nice guy. Really nice guy. Yeah.
So it was it must have been a wonderful experience meeting President Obama in person.
It was fantastic. It was, and I think the whole story gives us some insight into how warm and generous Americans are. From Dr. Jackson kind of coming out and getting me and pulling me into the back to President Obama just being so just warm and gracious to a guy that he doesn't know, he's never met me before, really kind of reminded me just how warm and friendly the American culture really can be. I was proud to be an American that day as well.
Yeah, you should be.
Yeah.
It sounds like a great perk. You got to see President Obama because you chose to come to Japan.
Yeah.
And I got a lot of questions from my students. When we first met, I was PGY2, so it was in summer of 2007, and I did the audition rotation at Queens Medical Center.
Yes.
And
I remember.
Yeah. And I was in the cardiology team, and my upper resident was Eric. I think that was around the end of the rotation.
Right.
He told me, okay, so Takeshi, so you want to go eat sushi? And I thought he would take me to a restaurant, but instead he stopped at Safeway and bought a chunk of ahi. And was it your house?
Yep. It was my, and then you guys showed up at my apartment.
Yeah.
We were having a sushi party.
Yeah.
Right? And the rule was, we make the sushi rice, you bring your own fish.
Yeah.
And then we prepared it, and we prepared nigiri. That was a fun party. I remember that. And that was the first time I was meeting you. Now, most of the Japanese medical students come to Kuakini, where I was working, Kuakini Hospital. But I didn't recognize you because you were at Queens. And I was like, who the hell is this Japanese guy? I should know all the Japanese who come to UH. Who's this guy? And I remember talking to Eric Von Hagen, being like, so he's a medical student, but he's not a Kuakini. Wait a second. Does not compute. But we remember you. We remember meeting you that night. And it's very good to see you again.
Yeah, I eventually made a cut. And I started working at cooking. And I remember seeing lots of patients with you. I remember a middle-aged lady who had obesity, hypoventilation syndrome. She was on chronic vent.
Lots of our patients.
Oh, yeah. And we weaned her off, and she got comatose again, so we had to intubate her again. And we also admitted a lot of patients.
Absolutely.
Yeah, at Kuakini, and you were one of the nicest attendings.
Well.
You bought our team McDonald's dinner.
Well, you guys did a lot of work for me. It's the least I could do. I'm helping send all you guys on your way towards obesity, hypoventilation.
A lot of calories, a lot of fat.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and we're trained to fat, and I think that was the first time you told me that you actually go back and forth between Japan and Hawaii.
That's right.
And I was like, how could it be possible? At the time, you just grinned.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, we're busy. That was a busy night.
Yeah.
And during academic half day, so for listeners, any American residency program, you have half a day per week dedicated for didactic activities, lectures, and workshops. That's when I met you again. And I think at the time you were working at St. Luke's already.
I was, yeah.
And I remember you were making some body joke showing us lofty St. Luke's Tower.
Right.
And because that was a men's health lecture.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
That's true.
One thing I still remember was, you told the whole class that if you have medical license and speak English, you can do what you're passionate about.
Absolutely.
Anywhere in the world.
Absolutely. So that's something that, even that was 10 years ago that I think you remember that from. And even now, 10 years later, I'm even more convinced that having a medical license in any country opens up more doors than any other single profession worldwide. So you really can do almost anything with a medicine degree. You want to go into law from there? You can go into law. You want to do engineering from there? You can go into engineering. You want to go into the arts? You want to write books, make movies? You want to draw manga? You can do that with an MD. It just opens so many doors because I think it's a job that forces us to think broadly. So thinking broadly also means we can think in a lot of different ways. And people like working with doctors at the end of the day. Even non-doctors like working with doctors. So from that point of view, it really does open up so many different opportunities. And that's as true, I believe that as much now as I did 10 years ago, you know? And then the other thing is, and we'll get back to this, the world is a small place, you know? As we were talking about earlier, doctors in any country are conservative, right? We grew up conservative. We had to study conservatively while everybody else was playing. We had to study and follow a certain path through medical school. And there's not so much room to roam when we're younger. And that means that more conservative people go into medicine. People who maybe are not so risk averse. But that being said, we tend to follow that very low risk pathway moving forward forever. And I think more young doctors need to know that you don't necessarily need to do that. The world is a super small place, and it's amazing that you can be a doctor in so many different places in the world, even if you didn't train there. As long as you're willing to be a little bit flexible, you can do a lot of different things all around the world and keep Japan as your home base. It's not just me that was able to do it. I think so many other people would be able to do it as long as they're not scared to actually do it. So that's something that in my life I've come back to again and again and again and again. And whether you want to do clinical care, or if you want to do medical education, or if you want to do research, or if you want to do other projects in the arts, in the sciences, in business, there's so many opportunities to go all around the world and do that.
It's great to hear that. But what I was taken aback was, I think it was just a year after you, or just 2 years after your chief residency, and you already had the courage or temerity to say that. Was there any episode or anecdote that made you convinced saying that? Such a bold statement.
Like, was there like a specific incident?
Right.
I think one of the things that really convinced me that the world was a super small place was it happened when I was a chief resident. We had, I don't know if you remember this, if you were there, but we had a Japanese fisherman who had a stroke out on a fishing boat. And Honolulu was the closest port of call. So he came into Kuakini Hospital. He was admitted to one of the resident services, and the stroke had happened. It wasn't progressing, so it's all, about stabilization of care at that point. And the guy needed to go back to Japan. So his marine insurance company was called, and they said, oh, yes, of course, we will pay for a flight back to Japan, but he needs to go with a doctor. So Kuakini looked around and said, which doctor's not doing anything? Oh, it's the chief resident. Hey, Deshpande, you want to go to Japan for the weekend? And I was like, what? You're going to send me to Japan for the weekend? And they were like, yeah, it's Friday. We just need you to go to Japan, fly into Tokyo. You'll be met by the insurance company folks. You'll drive out to Kameda Medical Center. You'll drop him off. You'll get 1 day to hang around in Tokyo, and then you'll take the flight back. And I was like, sign me the fuck up. Right? I didn't think it was I thought I was like living in some kind of dream world. Right? So I remember on the flight, and thankfully, as a medical attendant, it all went smoothly. The patient did well. There were no issues. And I remember on the flight back, I was like, this honestly feels just like a regular work day. It just feels like it's a long work day, but as any resident knows, when you've been on call for 36 hours, almost 40 hours, you start to feel like, oh, it's just a regular work day. It just feels a little bit long. That's what flying to Japan and dropping off a patient felt like to me. And that, I remember landing back in Honolulu, driving home, going to bed for 8 hours or whatever, waking up and thinking, hey, what did I just do for the last... like, oh, shit, I was in Japan, actually. And that convinced me the world is a super small place. You can literally, these days, you can fly across the ocean, go do whatever work you need to do, and then fly back to whatever country you consider home. Right? It was amazing. And, you know, maybe my perspective is a little bit different about that because my parents moved from India to America back in the 1960s. And my dad would tell me that to have a 3-minute phone call with his parents, he could only do that once every 6 months. And the sound quality was terrible. And forget about flying home, right? Flying back to see your parents, you only did that once every 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, because it was far away and it was expensive. How this world has changed. How small this world has become. That now you can just catch a flight for under $700. You can jump into another country, do your work, and then fly right back, right? And all the whole time you're in constant contact with everybody from around the world by FaceTime, on your cell phone. This world is a super small place. And we put up these artificial barriers that say, oh, I'm Japanese, I can only be in Japan. I'm American, I can only work in America. But, you know, for a lot of new jobs in the new economy, that's not true anymore. You can do your job as a doctor literally from almost anywhere. And, you know, forget about it. Like now with telemedicine and telehealth, that's only going to get more true, you know?
Yeah, even though you were chief resident, you were still getting paid.
Yes.
At the resident level.
Yeah.
And it must have been an out of this world experience.
Oh, it was so great.
And it must have changed your whole perspective.
I felt like a rock star. I felt like a celebrity.
Yes. Was that one of the reasons that finally pushed you to make a leap to get a job in Japan?
Definitely. So what happened was, you know, as you remember, Hawaii is such an amazing place. Such an amazing place. You've seen the apartment we had. If you remember, we did not have a dining room table in the apartment because we literally had every meal out on the lanai, on the balcony. So we had this really nice balcony. You look to the left, you see Diamond Head. You look to the right, you see Pearl Harbor. There's just ocean and just beautiful Ala Moana shopping center, Ala Moana Beach Park in between. It was great. So one day, I'm on the U.S. Embassy website because I knew that there was a health unit here in Tokyo. So, you know, I'm just kind of looking at it and I see the jobs description say, looking for a physician. Ooh, it sent shivers up my spine for two reasons. One, how many people can actually say that they can be a doctor in a different country, right? Like a clinical practicing doctor. But on the other hand, I loved being in Hawaii. And I looked out of my balcony and I saw this beautiful, it was a beautiful Hawaiian day. And I thought, this is a real decision. You know, I felt it in my bones that moment. This is a lifetime crossroad. What do I do? Spend the rest of my career here in this island paradise, or take a leap of adventure, right? Take a leap of adventure to a different country. I kind of, you know, I thought about it and I thought about it and I thought about it. But finally, I thought, I won't be able to sleep at night if I remember that I never took this leap of adventure. This opportunity that was kind of almost handed to me. if I say no to this, I won't forgive myself. Hawaii will always be here. And all of those great connections and the great students and the great patients, that's there waiting for me. But this opportunity to go to Japan and be a doctor for the embassy, that opportunity won't always be there. In fact, I'm sure it'll be gone pretty soon. So that was that final impetus, that I felt like the world was small, that this opportunity had fallen into my lap, and I would be remiss not to take it. And honestly, it was one of the best decisions of my life. Being a foreign doctor in Japan is not always easy. You know, you have a whole different layer of barriers and hurdles to overcome. But even still, moving here to Japan was one of the best decisions of my life. And I'm so happy that when that opportunity landed in front of me, I had like you said, the gumption, right? The gumption to go for it. And that's what I want every student, whether they're American, whether they're Japanese, I want every student to have that feeling, that even sometimes when it's risky, even sometimes when you don't know the future clearly, when that opportunity comes knocking, you open the door. You open the door.
And take a leap in the dark.
And take a leap, exactly. Because that's the way we can do the most good. Not only for our patients and our community, but also for ourselves, you know? By taking some of those leaps into the dark. Yeah.
Okay, so that was
2009.
2009.
Yep. I just completed 10 years here in Japan. And when we first came, I thought I would come for like 2 years. And 2 years became 4 years. 4 years became 8 years. 10 years later, still here.
This is actually the first time that I hear this story from you.
Really?
And, yeah. I didn't know about the weekend flight surgeon gig stuff.
Yep. It opened up my eyes to how much cool stuff there was out there, where you can still be a doctor, you can still take care of people. Taking care of people is very, very important to me. You can still do that and have adventure, you know, and travel the world and do all this fun stuff.
And when did you realize you can actually spend a few months back in the States too?
Yeah,
so you can maintain your clinical competency as an American physician.
Right. Well, I was super blessed. I was really just really lucky to have the embassy need me half-time and St. Luke's to need me half-time, and for the embassy and St. Luke's to sort of see eye to eye on that and say, hey, you know, you can share him, you know? So that's the first non-traditional thing. You know, I think most people, when they get a new job, they want to go full-time, one place, good or for bad, hunker down in one place. Well, that's the first non-traditional thing I did, was say, instead of only being at one place and being bored potentially, could I be at two places and have a doubly enriching experience? And that was so true, because being an American physician is one thing, but working in the Japanese system is quite another thing. And they're both fun and they're both interesting and they're both worthwhile experience. So there was that. But back home, I'm a hospitalist. I really like taking care of sick inpatients. I enjoy it, you know. I enjoy talking to the patients as they get better. I enjoy talking to the families as they worry about their loved ones, but then see their loved ones get better. That's not replaceable for a lot of foreigners working in Japan. And I gotta do that back home, and I gotta keep those skills up, because those skills are so important to just being a good doctor. And I think it reminds me of being a good person too, you know? So again, I'm so blessed that St. Luke's was willing to let me go and do that for a couple weeks a year, that the embassy was willing to let me go do that, because I think everybody sees the benefit of having that hard experience a couple times a year. As doctors, we're not immune to losing our skills very quickly. No matter if you're a surgeon or an internist or whatever, use it or lose it, right? So my employers were really surprisingly cool with letting me go for a week at a time and do some meaningful hospital work. The more I did it, the more I realized how easy it is to do. Let me give you an example. I teach down at a hospital in Gifu once a month. When I leave work to go to Tokyo Station, to wait for the Shinkansen, to get the Shinkansen, to transfer at Nagoya, to get out to Gifu, then take a taxi out to the hospital, and then do my teaching, and then come all the way back, in the same amount of time, I could have landed in Honolulu, right? So whether I'm traveling domestically in Japan or I'm traveling over the Pacific to Honolulu, time is not really that different. It's just where you end up that's different. And it's really easy to work in multiple places. You know? I think society wants us to think that international travel is so tiring, takes it out of you. But you know, as long as you can either sleep on an airplane or watch movies on an airplane, it's just like taking a Shinkansen or a bus or any other type of transportation. You just end up in a different place.
It's a great point. I never realized that. Yeah, it's the same 7 hours or 8 hours.
Yeah.
And maybe the quality of the travel might be better on the flight.
The food certainly is, you know. I really only fly JAL. I love JAL so much. And it takes me 6.5 hours to get to Honolulu. Takes me just, maybe just a little shorter of that to get to Gifu. So,
So you started off with embassy and, 1 became 2 and 2 became 3. And so you still go back to Hawaii. How often?
Yeah, so I try to get back 3 times a year.
3 times a year?
Yeah, for a week at a time. I mean, I think that in terms of keeping my skills up, that's the minimum amount of time needed to keep skills up. If you go once a year, it's almost not even worth it, If you go twice a year, it's better than once a year, but that's 6 months in between where you're not taking care of really sick patients. 3 times a year is the minimum sweet spot. And also, that means you get to go to Hawaii 3 times a year.
That's nice.
It is pretty nice. Sometimes I do day shifts, sometimes I do night shifts. And here's a little bit of the more flexible part. I think that I'm talking about like being able to travel internationally and live in 2 places and all this really cool sounding stuff. But you do have to be flexible as a person. You can't always say that you only want to do day shifts or you only want to do night shifts or you only want to work with English speaking patients or you only want to work with, a certain patient population. You do have to be flexible and, you have to be willing to, kind of like, do a lot of stuff and see a lot of stuff and be really positive about it, Like just have a good attitude about the stuff that you like and maybe the stuff that you don't like, because that's life, And it's better to just kind of face it with a positive attitude and just do it because it allows you to really do the things that you want to do at that point.
So, depending on what perspective you have, it could be some just, pain in the neck, or it could be a good experience.
Exactly. And when I'm on my 4th night in a row, overnight in Kokini, I'm always kicking myself thinking, why the hell did I do this, right? But as soon as I get back to Japan, I can feel the difference. It's like having taken my vitamins, I can feel my brain thinking more quickly and my spirit more ready for emergency situations, It really feels very rejuvenating, So a Japanese medical professional who might want to work in America but be scared about committing their whole life to America, that's not necessarily the case, You could kind of work in America and then you could come back to Japan 4 times a year to see the 4 seasons, spring, summer, winter, and fall, and get rejuvenated and then go back to America. It doesn't even have to be America, right? There's projects in Southeast Asia where they really, really, really need doctors. I have a good friend, a Japanese friend who was with me at St. Luke's, who's now a general practitioner down in Vietnam and really loves it, but also really loves coming back to Japan for visits and, things. So it's not just me. These opportunities are all around the world. They're everywhere. It just takes somebody brave enough to say, I'm going to do something different. I'm going to do it.
Yeah, you don't have to bound yourself
Exactly.
in Japan to Japan.
I think medicine in general does tell us to bind ourselves. I like that phrase, It tells us to sort of like walk this very narrow path onward and onward and onward. And that's great for some people. There's nothing wrong with following that narrow path. Medical school to shoki kenshi to koki kenshi to a junior faculty, maybe even onwards and upwards to a professor. There's nothing wrong with that path, as long as you know that path is right for you. If that path is right for you, go for it. But if that path isn't right for you, you're not going to be happy walking it. And if you're not happy, the people around you won't be happy. Your patients won't be as happy. So it's important for people to say honestly to themselves, to their heart, this is not my path. This is somebody else's path. I'm going to find my path and I'm going to live that path. And it's easy to say, it's hard to find. But with enough looking, you can find that path that really makes you the happiest. And when you're happy, I honestly believe this. When you're happy, the people around you are happy. So, one thing that I love about Japanese culture is that people are always thinking about the people around them. But if you're really thinking about people around you's happiness, you're kind of obligated to make sure that your heart is satisfied as well, that you're happy as well. And I think that's super important for any human on earth.
Yeah, I completely agree. You come across as a super happy guy.
Oh, yeah,
and, and pretty much, everybody around you are also happy. So.
I hope so. It's not to say that I'm happy all the time, right? Like only like somebody on drugs would be happy all the time, right? But you've gotta be able to say what you're not happy about, say it, get it out, and then be happy again, right? And for that, communication is very important.
Yeah.
Flexibility, communication, those things are very important.
Yeah. Speaking of Japanese culture and cultural difference, I got a question from a student. And his question was, what was the thing that surprised you when you came to Japan at first, but later you came to like,
Absolutely.
Or at least made sense to you?
What was something that was totally, totally bizarre to me when I first came, but then given enough time, I can't live without? The Toto Washlet. Absolutely the world's best invention. I think Mr. Toto or Mr. Washlet, I don't know who invented it. I think he should get a Nobel Prize. So let me tell you a funny story about my first encounter with a Toto Washlet. I was a medical English teacher at Ehime University, and I'd never been to Japan before. I had just finished my master's. I had not gone to medical school yet. And I was invited to a professor's house at Ehime University. I believe he was a cardiology professor. And we had a nice dinner, there was wine, and then I had to go take a leak, So I go to the bathroom, I take a leak, and I cannot find the flush. And I'm looking and I'm looking and I'm looking. There is no flush on this toilet. How can a toilet not have a flush? What the hell is going on here? And then I see a little box on the wall. And the box has all these buttons on it. And at that point, I didn't read Japanese at all. But I see one button that looks like it has a fountain mark on it. And fountains means water. And water usually means a flush. So I say, okay, I'm gonna press this button that looks like a fountain. I press it, and I hear a little buzzing. And I look down into the toilet. I'm standing above the toilet, and I see this little nozzle come out. And I think, how strange. And then the nozzle looks at me. And I realize in an instant what is about to happen as it totally blasts me with washlet spray. And I panic. Instead of just calmly and quietly closing the lid of the toilet, instead I try to somehow stop the spray with my hands, which clearly doesn't work. I finally figure out how to turn it off, and I walk out completely soaked. And everybody at the party just bursts out laughing. So that was my introduction. That was the most bizarre introduction to a country I have ever had. But now I'm completely on board the whole washlet thing. And I make it a point when I have guests visiting from America not to tell them how to flush the toilet. So,
that's hilarious.
Yeah, so that's my my Toto Washlet story. But there's so much in Japan that was really strange to me when I first came. But now I almost can't live without. From food to culture. One of the things that I really, and I think every foreigner is like this. We get so used to omotenashi culture. People smiling and being gracious during customer service or even during normal interactions, that when we go back home and we don't see that, we almost feel like, doshio. Why is nobody smiling? Is the waitress mad at me? Why is she mad at me? We forget that that's normal in America. But it's something that it's hard to live without. When I'm back in America, especially the mainland, for 2 or 3 days, I really miss Japan. I really miss that omotenashi culture, that omotenashi feeling, and that applies not only to customer service, but also the way that kind of people in businesses work together, people in hospitals or departments work together. It really is sort of it's a kind and pleasant experience. And that's something that, if I could condense that into a bottle and bring it back to America with me, oh man, I'd be a billionaire selling that on every street corner. It's really a wonderful part about Japan.
Thanks for the nice words.
Yeah, man.
We have more questions that we want to ask to Dr. Deshpande, but for the sake of time, this concludes the history-taking section.
All right, here we go. Dr. Future.
Shifting gears a little bit, we'd like to move on to review of systems.
Okay.
And so this is where I want to tease out the habits, routines, tactics, favorite books, and breakfasts, or lack thereof.
Sounds good.
Okay, so first question. So you have a lot of balls in the air. So you work at Embassy, Juntendo, St. Luke's, and you do a lot of workshops.
I do.
And you also go back to the States 3 times a year.
Variety is the spice of life.
Yeah. So what does your week or month look like?
Yeah, so my week is generally I'm at the embassy every morning taking care of my patients over there. And then my afternoons are generally at Juntendo, where I spend a lot of time teaching the international students who come, teaching the Juntendo students who come, who are generally fifth-year students and sixth-year students, as well as doing a little bit of clinical care on my own. And then I've maintained 2 of my foreigner clinics at St. Luke's. Foreigner care to make sure that foreigners living in Japan get the same access to care, the same quality of care that Japanese people have excellent access to in this country is really important to me. That's kind of one reason why I keep a lot of balls in the air, is because foreigners kind of get their care all over Japan. They don't all go to Juntendo, and they don't all go to St. Luke's, and they certainly don't all go to the U.S. Embassy. The more places I can be at, I think the more we can contribute to helping people who need the help. So that's the kind of the way that I see my week, and that's why my week is at so many different places. And then generally 1 or 2 weekends a month, I go do some guest teaching at a different hospital somewhere in the country. And I love that. I think I'm a country boy at heart, and I love getting out of the city, out into the countryside, smelling that fresh air, clean mountain air, delicious food all over the country. And really, I mean, Japanese people out in the countryside are so nice. They're so sweet, and there's just an amazing feeling that I get when I go out to the inaka areas of Japan.
Where did you actually grow up?
So I grew up in New Jersey, which is like basically one long big suburb, you know? But at the end of my street in New Jersey, there was a cornfield on one side and there was a strawberry field on the other side. And I grew up playing in the woods in my backyard. So even though it's New Jersey, which is kind of sandwiched between New York and Philly, it was still kind of semi-countryside, you know? And I think that still sings to me when I get out of Tokyo. Now, I love living in Tokyo. There is literally everything that I would ever want and need in Tokyo. But that makes getting out of Tokyo extra sweet when I do get out. So, for example, this weekend I'm going to go teach down at Aso Izuka Hospital in Fukuoka. I mentioned that I go to Gifu every month to teach out there. I think I teach or have taught in 24 of Japan's 47 provinces, prefectures. And my goal is to teach in all 47 eventually. So that is my goal.
So you colored a
I do. I have a little map at my office, and I have a pin in each prefecture. So I'm trying.
I like that. So what is your mixture of your balance between your clinical work and teaching and administration and research work? Now I think it's pretty much 60 to 70% clinical work and 30 to 40% teaching with a little bit of administration. It hasn't always been like that. When I was in Hawaii, it was 75% clinical work, 25% teaching. When I moved to Japan, it was 50% clinical work, 50% administration and research, with a little bit of teaching. It's morphed over the years. And I think that's fine, because you gotta do what the work demands. Again, it's about being flexible. If I went around saying, hey, I'm only gonna do clinical work, and you need me to do administration? Screw you. That's not gonna work. You have to be sensitive to the needs of your organization, and you gotta be willing to say yes to the things that you feel comfortable to say yes to. But I tell folks, try, because the world needs it. Try to have a balanced practice. Try to do 30% clinical work, 30% administration work, 30% research or teaching. If you don't really like research or teaching, maybe do 60% clinical work,
30% administrative work, or maybe even 30% administrative work, 10% teaching. But try to have at least a little bit of each of those sections in your career, because those things are really important. They're really, really important.
So you've tried different, ratios. And how do you like 70-30?
I like it. I like it a lot. Like I mentioned,
it's a sweet spot.
It's. I think it's my sweet spot. I really like taking care of people. I really like that nurturing aspect of being a general doctor. And nothing makes me feel as rewarded as seeing patients, helping patients, talking with patients, and seeing how they respond to my caretaking. So being able to do that 70% of my time, I feel super blessed to be able to do that. But at the same time, I know that education is important. Administration is important. If you don't educate the next generation to do what you love to do, who's going to do it? If you don't do administration to help set up systems to keep your good system that you love going, it's going to fall apart as soon as you leave. So those are necessary parts of the job as well.
Yeah, that's the price you gotta pay.
Yeah, exactly. And it's a price we all should pay. It's like taxes.
Okay. We go little micro. Can you please describe your first 60 minutes of your typical day?
For 60 minutes.
60 minutes.
Absolutely.
60 minutes.
Absolutely. I get up around 6 or 6:30 in the morning, and I generally don't have to get up that early, but my son goes to school quite far away from where we live, and it's really important for me to see him in the morning, to have some quality time where he can talk to me, I can talk to him. Or, as a moody teenager, he might not even talk to me, but at least we can sit together and feel each other's presence, And that's super important. I think it's so easy as a doctor, as a father, as a man, to sort of say, work is more important and I need to go do all these other things and I can't be with my kids, But my mentors in America, they've all said the same thing to me when I asked them, what do you regret? They all have said, I wish I spent more time with my kids. Isn't that crazy? Like people who are in different fields of medicine, different universities, they all say the same thing. I wish I spent more time with my kids. So the morning for me, I wake up earlier than I need to because I want to sit with my son and feel his presence and have him feel my presence. And then eat a little bit of breakfast. And I'm out the door. And usually I for the first 5 or 6 years in Japan, I took the train every morning. And the trains are excellent. They're the best thing about Japan, but they're also the worst thing about Japan. And I'll tell you why. They're the best thing because they're efficient, they're fast, they're plentiful, they work perfectly. But they're the worst thing about Japan because nobody really talks to each other, right? They are so utilitarian that they're no longer human places where humans get together, right? Nobody talks to each other, nobody looks at each other, and people pack themselves in, right? So it's a kind of almost dehumanizing efficiency machine. And because of that, I bought a scooter a few years ago. And now, as much as the weather will allow, I ride my scooter to work. It's a 50cc Honda Today, and it is fantastic. I get to be out in the fresh air, enjoy Tokyo. I get to see neighborhoods in Tokyo. So that's the way I get to work. Yeah. And usually on my way to work is when I'm kind of thinking about what is today? Where do I need to be today? What are my priorities for today? So whether I'm commuting by train or whether I'm commuting by scooter, I try to use that time productively to sort of center myself.
So, because you're on scooter, not on a car,
Yep.
so I presume that you don't listen to anything for the sake of safety.
Absolutely.
So that's your, in a sense, time of void.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's a great way to describe it. It is my time of void.
Do you deliberately take other types of time of void in your day?
Recently, one thing that I've started doing is I realized that my days were getting so busy that I was no longer reading. I wasn't reading. I wasn't reading for pleasure. I wasn't reading for education. It was just sort of go, 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 go. Patient, meeting, patient, meeting, patient. When was I actually reading something? Reading the news, reading a novel, reading an article, reading something that was interesting to me. So I take very, very quick baths. Because, bath time is not an American thing. It's more of a Japanese thing. So, like, my version of the bath was just, like, jumping in and jumping out. Right? And then I realized, bath time is great reading time.
Oh.
And now I actually bring something that I want to read into the bath every day. And, sometimes it's something super short. Sometimes I found myself being there for an hour, and my family saying, "Is he dead? Did he drown?" And sometimes it's a novel. Sometimes it's like an evidence-based article that I've kind of wanted to read for a while but didn't have a chance to. Sometimes it's something current events or politics related, but reading is super important. It is another self-reflection time almost, Reading allows us to understand ourselves better and the way we feel and the way we think.
Oh, so now you're into Japanese bath.
Holy moly, I love them. I love them. I would spend 3 hours in the bath now if I could, I totally did not understand the whole bath thing for 7 or 8 years. Now I totally get it. I totally get it.
Yeah, I'm glad you found another reason to stay in Japan.
Super awesome.
Any nighttime routine? How do you bookend your day?
Yeah. I am awful at ending my day. And I always have been awful at ending my day. So just maybe genetically, I'm a night owl. My brain turns on around 10 p.m. And my most productive time is between 10 p.m. and 1 a.m. That's when I'm sending good emails, I'm doing good writing if I'm working on a research article or something. That's when I feel the most alive. That's not always super healthy. So I try to be as productive as possible. I usually set a time limit for myself that no matter how I'm feeling, no matter how productive or unproductive I am, I'm going to turn the computer off at this time, say midnight. And then after that, I'm going to have a routine to go to bed. I'm going to brush my teeth. I'm going to make the lights a little bit low. I might have a snack, but I know I shouldn't. But I have to force myself to shut off at the end of the day. And I think that some people naturally have a bedtime programmed into their mind. Other people don't. But everybody needs to force themselves to shut off at some point.
So as a night owl, you definitely need a shut down the routine.
Absolutely. You know what my most enduring fantasy is wishing I didn't need to sleep at all. If I didn't need to sleep at all, I could be doubly as productive. I might not even need a house, right? Because if you don't need to sleep, then all you need is a storage container to keep your stuff. You don't really need a bedroom or anything, but unfortunately, we all need sleep. Sleep is healthy. Sleep is good.
Okay. So you said you started reading again. on a regular basis. And how do you actually keep yourself up to date, or how do you keep learning? What are the sources of information for you?
The news. I gotta read the news every day. And if it's an article that I want to read, like say out of the New York Times or the Washington Post, or even off the internet, I'll do that during bath time. But in between patients, like during the whole day, I'll always have one screen with the news on, either the Japanese news or the American news, so that I can always kind of read articles, like short articles that involve me or involve my family or involve my country, and kind of be up to date. So that's super important in terms of like the news. In terms of staying clinically up to date, that's a lot tougher. Wow, because the information that's being thrown at us all the time, and especially in general medicine, where you have to look at all the fields of medicine all the time, that's tougher to keep on top of. But so what I do is generally after I see a patient, especially a patient who kind of has an interesting illness or something interesting, I'll go online and I'll just review something that I'm thinking about. Like I had a patient the other day who had some symptoms consistent with pheochromocytoma, right? Not 100%, but some symptoms. So after we finished the encounter, I just went online, I looked at some of the knowledge databases, and I just reviewed pheochromocytoma. That helps me not only review knowledge that I already know, but it forces me to look at what's new in that field, right? Because a lot of times these review articles and these digests will include really new data. You know, they'll say something like a 2018 study showed that blah 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 blah. So that's one of the ways that I force myself to stay up to date. There's another website that I really like. It's called Physicians First Watch, and it's published through one of the Harvard affiliated programs. But it gives me a little email message every day on the last 24 hours most hottest changes, or new articles or new studies or something interesting. I don't read all of them, but I read the titles of all of them, and then I read the articles that will help me or my patients. And that's a great way to stay on top of things as well.
Physicians First Watch.
It's called Physicians First Watch. It's free to sign up for the daily notifications. A lot of the summaries will be free as well. So if you're interested in an article, you click the title and it gives you a little, just kind of a breakdown of what the study showed, why it's important, and what a prominent author thought about it. So it's a great way to stay on top. If you're further interested, then you can click the paper itself, and then maybe it's free, maybe it's not. You know.
But I don't think Physicians First Watch is that popular among Japanese physicians yet.
Yeah.
So I think it's good for the listeners to take a stab at.
It's awesome. It's awesome. You know, a lot of, I kind of like, well, whether I'm talking to my patients or whether I'm talking to my colleagues, I often do the really annoying sort of like, oh, did you know a recent study just showed, right? Or, oh, a study just came out 2 weeks ago that showed da-da-da-da-da-da, right? And how do I know that? I know that because Physicians First Watch knows that. It really is a fantastic way to stay super up to date on the most interesting things that have happened. And we do need tools that help us do that, because otherwise there's just way too much research. There's way too much information being generated for the human mind to stay on top of everything. Yeah.
In Japan, they have Nikkei Medical or something that also reviews practice-changing researches.
Yeah.
But I think Physicians First Watch has a different view. even it's the same article, probably they have different perspective.
Yeah.
And it's also a great way to learn medical English.
Absolutely.
So, I want my listeners to take a stab at it.
Absolutely, and they usually the little digest is just a paragraph or two, so it's not very long at all. It's something that they could just kind of say that they're going to read one little blurb once a day, and that's a great way to review English.
All right, let me go to questions from students. Additional questions.
Okay.
The first one is, what is your hobby? What do you do on weekends or spare time?
Yes, I play tennis. I play a lot of tennis. As my esteemed colleagues know, I injured my knee skiing this winter, but I am happy to say I'm back to playing tennis. Why tennis? Well, it's just what I played when I was little, and then we all get busy during medical school and all that, but one of the deans of my medical school told us, you've got to keep doing the activities that you love to do before. You've got to keep doing those into the future. If you play an instrument, you got to keep playing an instrument. If you loved playing a sport, you got to keep playing that sport. You don't have to do it 3 hours a day, but you got to keep doing it. So I love playing tennis. I keep playing tennis. I play with colleagues and friends. I take a class. So I try to play at least twice a week for an hour in the evenings. Even if it's late in the evenings, even if I have to kind of rush to get there, I make it a point to keep playing tennis. It's important,
Is the style different between Japanese and American?
Japanese play so much doubles. It's all doubles. In America, we tend to play singles, So I had to really learn how to play doubles. I didn't know a damn thing about doubles when I came to Japan. Now, my doubles game is probably better than my singles game, But yeah. So I play tennis. And recently I started picking up yoga. So I do yoga now.
Yoga?
Yeah. I spent the last 5-10 years recommending yoga to so many patients for a variety of illnesses. And then I thought, well, shit, maybe I should try some yoga. If I'm telling so many patients that it's so wonderful, it has so many benefits, maybe I should be doing it too. And I gotta say, I love it. I love it.
What type of yoga do you practice?
I have no idea. There's a wonderful, very, very inexpensive community class in Megoroku near where I live. So I just do it there. I don't know if it's Hatha yoga or Nantoka Kantoka yoga. Is it Indian yoga? Is it Japanese yoga? I don't know. All I know is that it's a whole lot of good stretching and pretty awesome poses, and it's fun to do, and it makes me feel good. So,
okay, because your family is originally from India.
Yes, yeah.
I thought you were particular about the school of yoga.
No idea.
No idea.
No idea at all.
All right. Next question. Where are your favorite places in Japan?
Oh yeah, so I have a lot of favorite places, but like I mentioned before, I love getting out of Tokyo. I love Tokyo, but I like getting out of Tokyo. The Toyama area is fantastic. I do a little bit of teaching out there about once or twice a year, and there's a place called Gokayama.
Gokazan?
Gokayama. I thought it's called Gokayama. They have these old style thatched roof huts, which are really they're really tall and steep. That whole area of on the Gifu side, it's kind of like Takayama. On the Toyama side, I think it's called Gokayama, but it's beautiful. It's really fantastic out there. So I love it, and the food is.
Next question. Where are your favorite places in Japan?
Oh yeah, so I have a lot of favorite places, but like I mentioned before, I love getting out of Tokyo. I love Tokyo, but I like getting out of Tokyo. The Toyama area is fantastic. I do a little bit of teaching out there about once or twice a year, and there's a place called Gokayama.
Gokazan?
Gokayama. I thought it's called Gokayama. They have these old style thatched roof huts, which are really they're really tall and steep. That whole area of on the Gifu side, it's kind of like Takayama. On the Toyama side, I think it's called Gokayama, but it's beautiful. It's really fantastic out there. So I love it, and the food is amazing out there as well.
What is good there?
The food-wise? Booty. The best booty I've ever had in my life. Just ridiculously awesome. So good. It makes me want to eat it right now just talking about it. That was fantastic, I really like Kyushu. People in Kyushu are just amazing. They're so kind and just really warm-hearted people. So there has not been a place in Kyushu that I don't like. I like all of Kyushu. Yeah, maybe when I retire, I might even retire to Kyushu. So we'll see. Yeah, but there's amazing places all over Tokyo, all over Japan, all over. Yeah, really. I think it's also part of being a positive person is that when you're looking for the positive, everywhere is amazing, right?
Yeah.
There literally is not a place in Japan that I can think of that I don't like. It's just there's so many adventures to be had and good experiences to do.
You've been visited how many prefectures so far?
Well, I've taught in 24.
24.
Of the 47. I think I've visited all of the prefectures except Yamaguchi. I don't think I've ever been to Yamaguchi. So if there's any listeners out in Yamaguchi who would like to invite me for teaching, please, I am available, drdeshpande@gmail.com. Send me an email.
I like that. Okay, next question. You learned anthropology at Stanford.
Yes.
And how does the experience translate into your work as a physician?
Yeah, that's a great question. And, in Japan and in America, we make medical students take chemistry, physics, calculus, biochemistry, organic chemistry. How many times have I ever used physics in my life as a doctor? None. How many times have I ever used organic chemistry in my life as a doctor? None. How many times do I use anthropology thinking or anthropological knowledge in my life as a doctor? Literally every day. Literally every day. So anthropology teaches us how to see human behavior in a kind of scientific way, right? It's the study of humans. So instead of saying that, people behave irrationally, or people behave in a kind of non-understandable way, or people's culture is not understandable, anthropology teaches us how to look at that like science, right? People behave a certain way and a predictable way. If you understand why they're thinking what they're thinking, how their culture is telling them how to think. So it really helps me as a doctor. It helps me to understand why somebody might not want to take medicine so that I can help them understand why it's important to take medicine. It helps me understand why somebody has not been taking the medicine that will help them. And then I can talk to them in a better way about why it's important to take that medicine. One of the biggest is, in general medicine, there's a lot of undiagnosed disease, right? There's just, low-grade inflammation. We don't have a name for it, but people feel bad. How do we understand what the right way is to teach patients why they're feeling, how they're feeling, what to do? I think all of those skills are from anthropology.
Do you come up with any patient encounter that your anthropologic way of thinking helped you to resolve conflict?
Absolutely. So, this just happened end of last week. So there's a new movement. Well, I think recently a lot of Americans are moving away from vaccines, right? I mean, the majority of people still take vaccines, but I think there's a thinking out there to be more skeptical about things like vaccines and medicines. And the doctor might say something, but you have to check it on your own on the internet, right? So at the same time, we have everywhere in the world, everybody wants antibiotics, right? You get a virus, you want antibiotics, right? Well, by understanding that American culture is going away from medicines, right? Especially what they perceive of as unnecessary medicines, too much medicine, you can use that same cultural thinking to tell somebody they don't need the unnecessary antibiotics, right? If you're thinking about the dangers of vaccine, let me tell you about the dangers of unnecessary antibiotics, right? And people get it. If you kind of approach it from that point of view, that you're leveraging their own feelings already to help them apply those feelings to something that they didn't think about, you can actually help them really better understand what you're thinking and what you are trying to guide them towards. So that happens all the time. Really all the time.
Soft skills
Yeah.
are in the limelight last few years.
Couple years, yeah.
But probably anthropology is a way to take stock of those soft skills and see what's really going on scientifically.
Absolutely. Let's apply that to Japanese culture, right? So Japanese culture, patient culture right now, is in a very demanding stage of radiology, right? Patients want their CT scan. Patients want their MRI. As long as the doctor knows that cultural disposition, they can better tailor their argument to make the patient happy, even if they don't give a CT or an MRI. There's certain words they can use. There's certain phrases they can use. I know that a CT scan would make you feel more comfortable, but if the doctor says it first, it really helps the patient understand, oh, wow, yeah, the doctor has a good point, right? If the doctor just kind of says, no CT scan, right?
Yeah.
It's less convincing than sort of acknowledging the patient's feelings, right? I know that a CT scan would make you feel safer, but right? But if you don't know the culture of your patients, how are you going to anticipate what to say, right? So whether your patient is Japanese, whether your patient is American, whether your patient is poor or rich, whether your patient is gay or straight, understanding the culture that they're coming from is super important to know how to talk to them.
Yeah, I think it's especially you see a wide, patients from wide variety of backgrounds.
Yeah.
Different upbringings in different countries, different values. So I think it's really crucial. And I think probably it's gonna be more important even for Japanese as we welcome a lot of patients from abroad.
But even among the Japanese themselves, even though the Japanese population is more homogeneous, you have to talk to somebody from Tokyo a different way than you talk to somebody from Ehime.
Yeah.
Because why? Because Tokyo culture is different from Ehime culture. Socioeconomically matters, right? Rich socioeconomic culture is often very different than poor or struggling socioeconomic culture. So even within Japan, there are these different ways to look at what culture means and tailor how you talk to people.
That's interesting. I think Japanese tends to think that they are weird, homogeneous.
Right.
But It's actually not the case.
Exactly. I think, it would be so much, life would be much easier if we were all homogeneous. Life would be easier, right? But that's not the way humanity works,
And that's why anthropology can be quite important.
Super important. Yeah. I think at least one medical anthropology class should be required for all medical students. At least one.
You should teach it here.
I've been thinking about that for a while. I've been thinking about that for a while.
Okay, so I know all of you folks want to know more about Dr. Deshpande's nitty-gritty, but being cognizant of time, this is all for review systems.
Cool.
All right, here we go. Doctor Future.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is time to talk about future.
The future.
Got him. So you've been a professor at Juntendo for over a year.
Yep.
And I believe this means a lot of people in Japan look to you as one of the young leaders who globalizes Japanese medical education, culture, medical practice.
I hope so. I don't know how effective I am, but I certainly hope so. That's the point, I guess.
That's the point. To start off, how do you feel about Japanese medical students?
Right.
Slash Japanese medical education. What are the pros and cons compared to US?
Yeah, I think one of the pros is that there is an efficiency here. By going directly from high school into medical school, it really it speeds up the process of becoming a doctor. And the process of becoming a doctor in America is so long. It's 4 years of undergrad, then it's 4 years of medical school, then it's 3 years of residency, then it's 2 years of fellowship. That it's a very expensive process, it's a very long process, and frankly, a lot of people just can't afford all that time and all that money. Here in Japan, especially at an inexpensive university, you go right from 18 years old, 6 years later, you're a doctor, right? So it makes it more accessible, I think, for a lot of different people from different socioeconomic backgrounds. So that's a real positive here in Japan. I think when I look at medical students in both places, I see a bell curve, right? You've got 20% of students who are awesome, and they would be awesome in any country, they would be awesome in any school or any university, they're just awesome. You've got about 60% of the group that, it's pretty good. They're trying, Sometimes they're successful, sometimes they're not successful, but they're trying. And in either country, you've got about 15% who maybe they only went to medical school because their parents wanted them to go to medical school, and maybe they would be happy doing something else.
Even in the States.
Even in the States, but less so in the States, and this is why. I think that it's hard to really understand what you want to do with your life at 18 years old. And at least in America, we got 4 extra years to make that decision, And that's the biggest thing that I want to see change in Japan. If everything stayed the same in Japan, great. The only thing I would add is 4 years of an undergrad education before medical school, because a 22-year-old can know better what they want to do with their life than an 18-year-old, And that's the same in any country across the world. A 22-year-old is just more mature about where they see their career and where they see their passion and interests. So that's a big difference here in Japan.
Yeah, it's in your case, actually, you went to Stanford for undergrad, and you went to graduate school.
Right.
So you graduated when you were 24.
Right.
And you came to Japan and spent a few years?
1 year in Japan.
1 year.
So I went to medical school when I was 26.
20. That's when you entered
Medical school. Yeah. So I graduated medical school when I was 30. I finished my residency when I was 33. So I didn't really become sort of an independent doctor until I was about 34.
34. And when you decided to enter medical school, that came with a decision to take out a student loan too.
Absolutely.
Right.
Undergraduate education and medical education in America is quite expensive. So it's a huge commitment. It's like buying a house. It's a big commitment. You got to be 100% behind that decision.
But because you were already mature enough, you were
26 when I started medical school.
Yeah.
And
you were capable of making that decision.
Exactly. And my experiences along the way made me sure that I wanted to be a doctor. So I entered undergraduate being in the pre-med program, but then I found anthropology. And I was like, I told my mom, "Hey mom, I think I'm gonna kind of delay medical school. I'm gonna go to anthropology grad school." And I remember she almost cried, because she really wanted a son who was a doctor. But like we talked about, that was one of the greatest decisions for my later career as a doctor. Going to Ehime and really working in a medical school environment made me doubly sure that this was the life that I wanted, So all of these experiences are not wasting time. They're making you extra sure that your career as a doctor is the right career for you.
How do you think that difference between Japan and America affects how students spend their 6th year or 4th year of medical school? How does that change their experiences?
Yeah. I think that, a lot of Japanese medical students, they have interests in club activities and other non-academic activities because that's an important part of growing up. Learning how to deal with your peers, learning how to deal with your senpai and your kohai. They gotta learn those skills somewhere. In America, you learn those skills as an undergraduate. So when you enter medical school, you are super razor focused on how to be the best doctor ever. And I think that's the biggest difference between a medical student in Japan and a medical student in America is in America you're razor focused on medicine, and everybody is. In the Japanese system, you still have to learn how to be a Japanese citizen, and you have to learn how to be a productive member of Japanese society before you learn how to be a doctor in that society, and that's a pretty big social difference. And it's a necessary difference, but it's a big difference. The other thing, and this is an important thing because it varies so much from country to country. In America, if you don't perform in medical school at a high level, you pretty much get thrown out. Or if you don't perform at a very high level in undergraduate, you don't go to medical school at all. So, as opposed to in Japan, you have to perform at a very high level to get into medical school. But then
can skate by?
Yeah, you can have a good time, right? You can kind of play, and as long as you study at the very end for your tests, you'll be okay, right? Probably. That's a very different philosophy of education in general. That's a big difference. It's a big difference.
That's interesting. So what is the unique point, or what are the unique points about Japanese medical education? Or, what do you think, where are we performing better?
I think that technical skills, and this is not so much for medical school, but just medical education in general, teaching technical skills how to put in a CV line, lumbar punctures, surgeries, both large and small, endoscopy, point of care ultrasound. Those technical skills is where Japan shines. Right? So really, that's when I counsel my patients, my American patients usually have a choice: stay in Japan or go back to America for care. If it's a surgical issue or if it's a technical issue, I say stay in Japan. Doctors are so well trained at their area of technical expertise that it's pretty amazing. And I've stayed here in Japan for a couple of surgeries. I've stayed here in Japan for a couple of procedures, because those technical procedures, I have a lot of faith in the medical training system here.
The reason I asked this question was we have 2023 issue here in Japan, so we have to catch up on American standard of graduate medical education.
Right.
But at the same time, how could we be a leader? It's easy to be a follower, but where should we double down on to become a leader?
Right.
Yeah.
I really see that again in the sort of the technical arena. So technology and use of technology, I think, is really where Japan can and does lead the world in a lot of different medical aspects. Let's take Shokaki Naika as an example, GI medicine. GI medicine, the use of colonoscopies and the use of endoscopies for minimally invasive gastric cancer surgeries, Japan is always 3 to 5 years ahead of the whole rest of the world. Always. I was a visiting medical student in Japan back in 2003. And at that time, I thought, wow, Japan is like 3 to 5 years ahead of America in GI. Even now, in 2019, I still think it's 3 to 5 years ahead of America in GI. And that's because of the mastery of endoscopy, right? And I think that's what Japan should be exporting to the rest of the world. What does that mean? How do you be a leader? You got to get more GI doctors from the rest of the world coming to Japan to get that training. Because if you don't show the rest of the world that you're so good at this thing, you'll never become a leader in it, right? Young residents should not be going to other countries to learn GI medicine, right? Or even cardiology these days. Those young residents should be coming to Japan to spend 1 month or 3 months in the GI department, in the cardiology department. So I think maybe by recognizing where Japan is already a leader, and then inviting the rest of the world to come be a part of that for a little bit. That's the way Japan's going to become a leader.
I like that you use the word recognize the areas where we're already a leader and sell it or export it. Come to think of it, when I was still in Hawaii, I remember you mentioned something about focus. I think that was during some round. You mentioned the Japanese residents would do ultrasound
right
that
away.
case on the spot, and so focus was already a part of practice even 10 years ago back in Japan, but now it's branded as focus, because back then there was no name for it. But now American physician and a group of physicians, they have named it focus. I don't know whether it's trademark, but it's everywhere. Americans are really good at
branding
things,
marketing it. Kuchi umai.
But Japanese hasn't been cognizant of their own strength for 10 years. And
I agree. One is the cognizance of the strength, right? There is that. But then you have to be brave enough to invite other people to see it, right? For any kind of marketing to work, other people have to see it. And Japan has been traditionally pretty insular, pretty isolated, right, for its history. But leadership requires you getting other people to look at what you're doing so well. And I think that's why America takes so much of the market share of credit for everything, is because America has a history of inviting people to come look and see, you know? Want to come spend a month with us? Great. Want to come spend a year with us? Great. Want to come do residency with us? Great, you know? That allows the rest of the world to see America as it takes the best from all over the world, right? And that gives a really good impression of America, as it should. But that doesn't mean that all of those great things were originally from America, right? Because one of the wonderful things about America is we can really recognize what the rest of the world is doing well and then invite them to come do it in America.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I think that's something that Japan will start to do over the next 5 or 10 years. You know, especially as the country opens up with things like Rugby World Cup, things like the Tokyo Olympics, things like just opening up the country to more foreign workers, things like that. Japan is globalizing. And in its globalization will be a wonderful new opportunity to become a leader as well, a world leader.
So each and every one of us should be open for those opportunities.
Absolutely.
And willing to invite people, communicate with them.
Exactly.
And seize, pounce on that opportunity.
One of the most amazing things about working here in Juntendo is how many foreign medical students and foreign researchers I see all over campus. I see people from all over the world, literally, and it's awesome because then they go back to their home countries and they say, wow, I just spent 1 month at this amazing place called Juntendo, right? Or I just spent 1 year at this amazing place called Juntendo. That's the way you show the world how good you are at something, you know.
Is there anything that medical students or residents can do to capitalize on those future opportunities?
Yeah, absolutely.
What are your recommendations?
Yeah, there's 2.2 million foreigners in Japan right now. 2.2 million foreigners, and many live in the Tokyo area, many live in the Osaka area, but they're really spread out all throughout Japan. And in order to sort of be a really sort of like global leader, medical students today should start working with these foreign populations. Right?
How?
Basically, you can start working as a medical assistant. You can start working as a translator. You can start working as a scribe. You can just be. You can join a volunteer opportunity where there's several volunteer opportunities that are starting with the Tokyo Olympics for medical students to have these medical information booths or tents. And I know Dr. Taka Oshimi at International University of Health and Welfare has one group called Medics. Medics, yeah, MEDIC, where it's a group of really motivated medical students who are going to be working as kind of medical interpreters, medical guides, medical assistants. So joining programs like that, or if one doesn't exist in your area, starting it. Starting a volunteer organization and offering your services to the hospital. To help with this globalization trend that's happening. And that's something that really every medical student can do tomorrow, you know?
So as the Olympic is, around the corner, So things are actually happening here and there.
Oh, yeah.
So
Definitely.
So just go get your feet wet.
Absolutely. 8 million people are going to come from overseas to Tokyo for the Olympics. But what are they going to do before and after the Olympics? They're going to go sightseeing all over Japan. So all of Japan is going to really see an increase in foreign tourism. And because they come once and they have an amazing experience, they're going to tell their friends, you should go visit Japan. And they're going to come back to Japan. And Japan as a whole is going to see so many more foreigners that the need for medical assistance, medical translation, medical care, medical help is just going to increase moving forward. Yeah. So that's a concrete way that medical students can actually help their own careers and do something really good for society at the same time. The other thing is I think that their hospitals will be so happy to have the help, right? A lot of hospital administrators don't have the time or the resources to put together these teams themselves. So to have a group of students come and say, we have a club, we're happy to help, can we work with you? Hospitals would be so happy. My international department here at Nintendo would be so happy to have a group of students who wanted to do that.
So if any listeners who are willing to work at Nintendo with
absolutely, come. We can put you to work as medical translators.
And this probably is the perfect segue to introduce your new book that's coming out in December?
Hopefully in December.
Year, or possibly January, February next year. You're writing this with Dr. Mitsumasa Kishimoto at St. Luke's Rheumatology Department. The title is The Perfect English Manual of Medical Care for Foreign Patients. This is coming now from Yodosha. What's the story behind this?
Right. So a lot of the English books right now that are out there for doctors really focus on medical English. But what a lot of docs need is really they need a template on how to make a referral to a different specialist. Or they need a template on how to make a registration form, patient registration form, for their foreign patients. They need help organizing the concrete things that they need to say, do, and give to a foreign patient when they walk through the door. They don't necessarily need to know the word suppurative hydronitis, right? That's some complex medical English that they're probably never going to need or never going to use in their life. But what they need is, how does an English referral letter sound? What should it say? What's the雰囲気 for that referral letter?
Yeah, it's specific diction.
Exactly, right? What kind of words do we use, right? Even if it's simple, what kind of simple words do we use? So this book will hopefully give them these concrete tools to build templates of their own for this kind of stuff.
So that should be really useful for a lot of hospitals.
Absolutely, and we hope that they can use it for the Olympics. We hope that they can use it onwards and forever.
Yeah, actually, I work at the international clinic in Kobe.
Yeah.
And a lot of specialty doctors ask me to translate their referral letters when their patients are transferring to other countries.
That's right.
So, you can't just do the word-to-word translation.
Right.
It just doesn't work that way.
There's a feeling.
Right. The subtlety.
Yeah. I had a funny experience a couple years ago. One of the doctors was discharging my patient. My patient was an inpatient and was getting discharged from the hospital. So he wrote a discharge letter to me. And the first thing it said, this doctor was a friend of mine as well. Dear Dr. Deshpande, thank you so much for admitting your patient to our hospital. He's getting ready for discharge. He's doing well. These were his last vital signs. This is his physical exam, and these are his discharge medications. Seemed really nice. Then the last paragraph was, oh, and by the way, we had an awesome steak dinner at that restaurant you recommended last week. It was so great. We had way too much wine, but the steak was delicious. And the whole last paragraph is about this restaurant. And I was like, Doshio, now I can't send this discharge letter. I can't put it in his file because half of it is about the steak dinner. So, hopefully this book will give guidance on what to say and how to say it, and also, kind of what you don't need to say.
The Perfect English Manual Medical Care for Foreign Patients, coming out around December 2019 from Yodosha, and please check this out on Amazon or bookstores. And I also found that you wrote a very useful chapter in this book called アメリカ臨床留学への道 You Can Do It, which was published in 2014 from Nanzando.
That's correct. And this book was actually kind of like a team effort by a lot of docs who had spent time in foreign residencies in Hawaii as well as other places, and had come back to Japan and were now supporting programs, that Japanese residents and students would be interested in going to if they were thinking about doing residency overseas. So I was asked to write a chapter about clinical presentations. Presentations are so different in Japan versus America.
Even today?
Even today. They're just really different in the level of detail, in the organizational structure, and, unfortunately, we only see what is presented to us. And we want to make sure that Japanese students and Japanese residents look really good when they go overseas, especially if they're thinking about doing a residency overseas. And in order to do that, they need to really give good presentations. It's something that medical students in America are trained to do from a very young, early age.
Probably day one. Yeah,
almost from day one, yeah. Certainly from the first year of medical school. And in order to be able to compete with that expectation, residents here in Japan really should know, what we're expecting. So hopefully my chapter helps kind of outline that.
What are the tips that you shared in this book?
Right.
What are the examples?
Exactly. I think, the take-home message for the chapter in this book is that you have to organize your presentation thinking about what your listener wants to hear. And that's hard, right? How do you read the mind of your listener?
Yeah.
But for example, when you give a gembyoreki, or a history of present illness, you want to present, of course, the story that you found, the symptoms that you found. But if your listener is, 例えば, for example, thinking about this might be pneumonia, you think it's not pneumonia, you should also present in the gembyoreki that there was no cough, no sputum, no shortness of breath. So kind of anticipating what the person wants to hear and then tailoring your presentation towards that. So we give those kinds of tips. Those are tips that you only know by doing it. And when I was a medical student, I certainly gave many bad presentations because I didn't know these things. So I'm trying to save other medical students from having that same experience.
That's good. So was the presentation that you made at Jasmine earlier was in the same line?
Well, actually, what I talked about at Jasmine, I gave a keynote address a few weeks ago, and I talked about the clinical reasoning workshop.
Reasoning?
Yeah, the clinical reasoning workshop is this workshop that we've been doing at the University of Hawaii for about since the late 1990s until 2009 when I moved to Japan. And then we kind of brought the same workshop here to Japan. It's a week-long workshop where we teach students how to do presentations, how we think about different types of diagnostic reasoning and history taking skills, how we do physical exam, how we do presentations. Like, it's like a gashuku of it's mini medical school. So I was talking to the Jasmine audience about ideas about how they could kind of incorporate some of those things into their medical schools. I think it's a great way to teach medical English while at the same time teaching clinical skills. Iseki nicho. And I would love to see more universities incorporate these clinical reasoning workshop skills.
So it's a week-long program.
We did it over a week. It was 4 very intense days, but it's modular. So universities or programs could just take different sections of it and just do different sections at different times throughout the school year. So it was very successful. It was very well received. Students really loved the program. And they built lifelong friendships and networks. Even the class of 2009 still keeps in touch today, 10 years later. So it's something that I was really proud of, that I wanted to share with the Jasmine group.
Is it integrated in the curriculum here at the Juntendo?
It's not. So we actually, just last year, we did a mini version of it, just for a select number of students. And we got really good feedback on it. It was really fun. I was so happy to see lots of faculty participate. I think the faculty had fun as well. And, it's something that I'm hoping that the Juntendo Medical School folks will hear about and maybe start incorporating. One of the exciting things is after we did that, we started a new course here for 5th-year medical students called Clinical Skills for International Patients. And it's for all of the 4th-year students, and it allows us to introduce these ideas to them. Yeah, so a small step, but a step in the right direction.
Very interesting. And there are a number of faculty members listening to this, and if they're interested in the program, can they invite you?
Absolutely. They can invite me. We can do workshops or sort of like mini presentations about it at their school. They're more than welcome if they just want to chat about it. They can send me an email. We can grab a cup of coffee and talk about this stuff. I love talking about medical education activities. And I will talk, anybody who cares to listen, I will talk their ear off about it. So, ultimately I realized that as a foreigner here in Japan, I'm a guest, and that I'm still limited as what I can do. So we need Japanese faculty to take the ball and run with it.
Sounds exciting.
Yeah, it is exciting. It is exciting.
Okay, so if any of the faculty members who are listening to this want to work with Dr. Deshpande, please feel free to contact him.
Yep, Facebook, send me an email. Always happy.
So the best way to say hello to you is...
Facebook is great. Facebook has gotten a lot of bad press in the last couple of years for privacy issues and blah, blah, blah. But I still keep doing Facebook because it is the easiest way to talk to people, both on a daily basis as well as people you've not talked to for years. So shoot me a message on Facebook or send me an email at my email address.
Okay, so I'll put your email address on the show notes.
Perfect.
All right. Gautam, so thank you for all the tips and your career course and your future envisioning. It's almost time. Do you have any last words?
Yes.
Parting comments? Something that you want the listeners to keep in mind, even if they forget the rest of the interview.
Absolutely. Remember on the Toto Washlet, wear the flight. No, I'm just kidding. I don't remember that. Well, do remember that. But what I want everybody to remember is that the world is so small now. It's such a small neighborhood now. And being a doctor opens so many doors that people should not feel scared to cross their own national boundaries, cross their own social boundaries, cross their own anxiety boundaries and get out there. Grab adventure. Go work in another country. If you can't work in another country, go observe in another country. And the world is such a small place now that if you carefully think about what you really want to do with your career, there's a 99% chance you actually can shape your career that way. Find the path that you want to walk on and then start walking.
That's a great advice.
It's
what
the
you
truth.
exactly have been doing.
Absolutely.
And probably you keep doing.
Absolutely. If I can do it, all of you listening can do it.
Yeah. Thank you for the great advice and all the time. Today we had the privilege to have Professor Gautam Deshpande from Junten University on the show. Gautam, thank you again for everything.
Thanks so much. It's been a real pleasure talking to you.
今回のインタビューのタイムスタンプ、紹介した本、イベントなどへのリンクをお探しの方は drfuture.jp drfuture.jp にある各エピソードのショーノートをご覧ください。質問、コメント、フィードバックも大歓迎です。他のエピソードをお探しの方は Apple Podcast、Google Podcast、Stitcher、Spotify、YouTube などからぜひ Dr. Future 未来の医師の作り方の番組登録をお願いします。なおこのポッドキャストの内容は僕個人の見解であり、勤務先の企業、病院とは一切関係ないこと、そして個別の医療相談をお断りしており、ご連絡いただいても一切ご返信しないことをご了承ください。I have been Dr. Jackie Mura. Until next time, thank you all of you guys for listening.